October 29th, 2012. I have more news regarding the central bank gold. On Friday, James Turk shocked King World News by telling them that Germany's gold was gone, over almost 3,400 tons. Now, they still have it on paper, but the physical gold has all been lent out into the market. And now today he comes out and says that 15,000 tons of Western Central Bank gold is gone.
Now, the world is losing trust in the dollar as a safe haven. A major blow came after Germany's Bundesbank demanded the repatriation of a big chunk of its gold being held in the US because, as Artis Giannichkian reports, some are concerned the assets of foreign nations in the Federal Reserve are not secure or even there.
Germany has recently decided to bring home all its gold, but the Federal Reserve said that it's not possible, that it would need until 2020 to be able to accomplish such a transfer. Germany then asked to visit the Fed vaults to make sure that the gold is actually there, but the Fed first refused to permit Germany to examine its own gold. Then the Germans apparently insisted, and the Fed did open only one of 9 rooms, but they were not permitted to either enter or touch the gold. The German government has stored about half of its gold supply with the US Federal Reserve, so they're understandably nervous. This makes not only Germans nervous, of course. US financial institutions have a history of selling things that don't exist. One example, last year Goldman Sachs were proven to have been selling gold certificates to the public, saying that they were backed by real gold in their vaults. But the story leaked out that they, in fact, held no gold at all and were doing so-called fractional reserve gold banking on the basis that few people would want to claim their gold at any one time.
Well, the Germans were infuriated when the US Federal Reserve didn't even let them examine their own assets properly. Peter Boehringer, the founder and chairman of the German Precious Metal Association, says that's a bad sign.
We have pressured Bundesbank a lot. We have sent a lot of questions there, and other parties have as well. We have to know why they are not doing a proper audit, why they're not pressuring their partner central banks, especially the Fed, to do a proper audit. Why, if that's not possible for whatever reason, why they're not repatriating their gold. So there's a lot of reasons and questions unanswered. The US or the Fed is nowadays monetizing between 60 and 80% of newly emitted federal debt, federal treasury bonds. There's basically no foreign free market buying for the US dollar treasury debt. And that is bad news. It says something about the quality of the US dollar as a reserve currency. China and India will probably consume 2,300 tons together of gold this year, which is almost 100% of world mining production.
It's all gone, and this is all possible because the IMF's been allowing the central banks to list gold and gold leasing as one line item. Gold and gold out on loan is one line item on the books. Now, anyone who understands general accounting principles knows that you can't put cash and receivables on the same line. This is, receivables is an asset because you got the money coming back to you in the future. But they've been listing gold in the vault and gold that's due back to them that they've lent out as the same thing.
Behind these walls is one of the most secretive organizations in the world, the US Federal Reserve. Whoever tries to audit them hits a wall. This place is impenetrable for audits. For years, the US Federal Reserve has been the place where many countries have stored a big chunk of their nation's wealth. As the countries weathered different waves of economic crisis, economic instability, the Federal Reserve seemed to them like a more or less secure place to keep their funds. But are the funds really secure, or are they even there? There has been speculation for a long time that the Fed doesn't actually have much gold, that it has either sold it off, lent it out, or used it as collateral for borrowings. Either way, there are many claims that the gold that is being stored on behalf of many nations doesn't actually exist.
There was a time when taking gold out of the US Federal Reserve was only for Hollywood to suggest
Fort Knox! Ha! It's for tourists!
and Bruce Willis to stop. But the financial crisis in Europe saw Germany decide it wanted to bring home a significant chunk of the precious metal from the United States. Despite the aim to ship 300 tons to Frankfurt by 2020, so far they've only managed to bring back just over 10% of that.
The Americans are taking good care of our gold. We have no reasons for mistrust.
Not so, say critics of the slow progress. The $635 billion of gold in US vaults has never been fully inspected by Germany.
Es müsste angesehen werden.
Why we haven't been allowed to inspect this escapes me. I'm no conspiracy theories, but the Bundesbank should be able to audit the gold once a year like it does with the reserves in Frankfurt.
The power of the U.S. Federal Reserve has grown dramatically, especially since the 1970s, when the U.S. cut the link between dollar and gold. That allowed the U.S. dollar to be bought and sold freely on the market, and with the U.S. dollar being the main reserve currency, the U.S. has basically been able to tax the whole world. It can just devalue other countries' holdings by printing more money. Now we see many countries trying to maneuver away from the U.S. dollar as the main reserve currency, and we see many central banks increasing their own gold reserves. And it seems after all these years, the world decided they put too much power in this one building.
The lack of inspection has led some to question if it's still there.
Even after at least 1 decade of asking Buba, Bundesbank and the Fed, there is still no shred of evidence that the German gold is untouched in the New York Fed's vaults. We are still missing, for example, published bar number lists, even though the US, the Federal Reserve, does publish these lists for their own gold.
Germany has the world's second largest gold reserves, worth $141 billion. Currently, 45% of that is stored in New York, 13% in London, 11% in Paris, although the 374 tons in France is set to be all returned to Germany. The rest is in the Bundesbank vaults in Frankfurt. Anyone questioning the safety of the gold reserves have been laughed off as conspiracy theorists by those in charge. They say it's solid financial management. The Bundesbank maintain that their plan is on track. However, they do face a potential logistical headache as they try and return almost 700 tons of gold from New York and Paris back here to Germany safe and sound by the 2020 deadline. Peter Oliver, RT, Berlin.
Looking further back in history, during World War II, the Fed came to many countries in Asia, Latin America, and Africa, and told them their gold holdings might not be safe because of the war, and that they should permit the Fed to take all of it to the US for safekeeping. Many countries have done that, receiving Fed gold certificates in exchange. But when they later tried to cash in those certificates and reclaim their gold, they were told the certificates were fake, that they contained spelling and other mistakes, so on and so forth, and the Fed still has all that gold.
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here. This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a